Hello and welcome to Media Week. I'm Ingrid Willinge. Ahead on the show, Mark and Carl Fennessy exiting Shine Australia, plus BBC going ahead with Top Gear Live in Sydney and Melbourne this year, but with some changes. We'll tell you about them later in the program. But first, global demand for online video advertising will grow at an average rate of almost 30% a year to reach over $23 billion in 2017, the fastest growing ad category according to a forecast by advertising group Zenith Optomedia. Online video, a very significant part of the advertising spectrum. For more, our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, joins us now in the studio as always. James, great to have your company on the show.
Very good.
So, with Netflix coming online, we've obviously been watching this quite closely lately. It seems relevant we're talking about the growth in online.
Sure, yeah. Look, that you mentioned the Zenith Optomedia forecast. We get these every quarter. They update it. They've just updated the global growth this year to 4.4%. That's actually come down a little bit. They're still forecasting around 1.6 in Australia, so we're a lot below the global growth. That number's pushed up by a lot of emerging markets where there's quite explosive ad growth in a lot of different sectors. Some of the things they've highlighted for the sort of downgrading of the global growth, if you like, if it's economic troubles in Russia, a bit of a slowdown in China, the Ukraine, places like that, just making them pull back a little.
Yeah, OK. Well, with all this in mind and more video viewing options coming almost weekly for consumers, the tracking of what people watch is more critical than ever to advertisers. Tracking both free-to-air and subscription TV audiences is done by OzTam, an organisation owned by the commercial networks 7, 9 and 10. The data is used by advertisers to decide where their multi-billion-dollar TV ad spend goes every year. Joining us today to talk about it is OzTam Chief Executive Doug Pfeiffer in the studio with us now. Doug, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
So, what is the headline about TV audiences this year? Is it getting smaller, maybe harder to track?
Not harder to track. We've been tracking television, OzTam, for the last 14 years. So we know how to do that quite well. Tracking on other devices is proving difficult around the world. If you look at the headline numbers for TV, it's still pretty constant. Live TV still makes up most of the TV viewing, and then playback. So
is that a surprise to you that live TV still makes up the majority?
Not really. I mean, it's been that way for some time. I mean, people come home from a hard day's worth of work day, turn on the television, watch the news, watch the sport, watch their favorite programs. What is happening is that playback viewing is growing, so people are time shifting a little bit more. So when it's very competitive, like what we've seen at the start of this year with 3 reality programs on at the same time, there is time shifting. So watching one and then watching the other one straight after or the next day, or going online and watching it from another device, like a tablet or a catch-up service from one of the broadcasters as well.
Doug, tell us about, so what is OzTam doing to start measuring those other platforms, watching the content that you can watch elsewhere than just overnight on your TV?
Okay, we've started a program last year, and as I say, devices like viewing programs on PCs, tablets, and mobile phones, a little bit trickier. You can put software on there to try to grab that viewing, but there's some technical issues with that, battery life, things like that. We've actually started working with the broadcasters last year, and we put a piece of code in the player. So ABC iView, 7, 9, 10, it actually sends us real-time data back. So we now have, across the 5 free-to-air broadcasters, live data coming in by device level. So we can see. It's not ready for release yet. We're testing it. We still need to know the demographics behind it. So we know how many people watched Kitchen Rules last night on 7 Catch-Up or throughout the week. So we're capturing that now.
Are there things happening overseas in terms of audience measurement that we need to get moving on here?
We're probably all in the same boat, and everybody's taking this approach of putting this software into the players to get that information, and so everyone has to build it out. The difference with doing this, instead of just building a panel of households, we ask households to participate in the current TV rating system. We have to get the broadcasters to put this code in, so there's some development time that takes. So it's a little bit different, but this is the approach that most markets around the world are doing, and everyone's looking at a release date of later in this year or the start of 2016 for second screen measure.
Now, you contract, I think, Nielsen to do the actual measurement for OzTam, and you release their data. Is that right?
It's still our data.
Okay, yeah, but they get it for you?
Yeah, they are the contractors, and they collect the data on the people meter households.
So how long's that deal got to go? And I guess it's outside the perimeters of their current thing, because they're doing a lot in mobile space, and that, aren't they?
It is. So the current contract runs till the end of 2017. We've put out a request for information from a number of research providers globally just to test the market to see what's out there and the new approaches that are going. End of 2017 seems like a long way away, but it takes a long time to actually build these systems. We've got 3,500 households that we have people meters in. If we were to replace that in any way, it takes some time to actually make that change. The request for information has gone out. Nielsen do a good job delivering what we get now. The request is to see what's new in the marketplace, new approaches, new softwares to measure different devices, and the smarts of how to bring it back together. And so that's where we're starting to get those proposals back now.
Okay.
Can we talk a bit about some of the stats from your latest multi-screen report? It looks like internet-capable TVs are sort of taking over, or at least getting to 30% now of homes, which is quite a sort of big proportion when you think about it.
It's a lot, yeah.
What do you make of that? I mean, just can you give us some views? Do we know how many of them actually get connected to the web as well?
We do. So 30% is the latest number, and that's going to continue to grow. Most TVs now are internet-capable. Okay, so if you look inside the report, that's a capable number. Probably about a year ago, we saw about a quarter of them connected. And we're seeing about half connected now out of those capable sets. So people are plugging them in. The TV sets themselves are becoming easier to connect to the web. So you log it in, it looks for your Wi-Fi,
yeah,
and all of a sudden you're in. Now what that does to viewing is that we're seeing from the multi-screen report, you start to see that the total use of the television starts to go up. So people aren't using the television less, they actually start to use the television more. Live TV comes back a little bit, which is in the report. Playback is starting to grow a little bit, but the use of the TV for other things, so using it for rented movies, YouTube, anything that's not what we cover in the broadcast ratings or in the television ratings, that usage is starting to grow and has been growing a bit.
56% of homes, I think, have a PVR, which
Yes.
includes, I think, the Foxtel IQ homes.
Yes.
Let's say that's a third of Australia, roughly a third of the market or something, a little bit lower. Doesn't that mean a lot of non-subscription TV homes don't have PVRs?
No, it's about 50-50. Of the households we have in there, there's PVRs that are commercial PVRs that you can buy, like an LG or a Samsung or something, and that's about half that number. I think the interesting thing that we're seeing as well from the data when we look at it is people are playing back content without a PVR. Okay, so they're taking and plugging their laptops in and playing ABC iView or 7 Catch-Up or 10 Play to their TV. Now, that if it's connected to a TV that has the people meter on it, it will count in the ratings for that program.
Well, that brings us into tablets as well, right? Because tablets, 47% big growth in tablet households, but do they also stream that to their TVs, or are they watching it?
Now, we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
If a household streams something from a tablet to a TV, if it's played back within 7 days, that's what we report in the ratings, then that content will be picked up. If I go in another room and just watch it there, that'll come through the second screen measure that we're actually collecting in those channels that we have plugged in. So that question is a good one, because I think more people will start to throw content to the television set. So the TV I see is, as it gets smarter, will be used more for more things.
Just wondering on that IQ too. I mean, IQ3, could IQ4 just be a bit of software? As you say, people are starting to stream catch-up content now. I mean, will it just be all in the cloud eventually and you won't need that hardware
that's a good
box?
question.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, where they put that content and how they get it to the screen is likely to change in the future.
Yeah, the other thing was over 90% of all TV viewing is still live. Now, that's a stat. I mean, you read that a lot of TV analysis says, look, live TV viewing, old school, people want to control, it's all about catch-up now. Still not the case, is it?
No, it's interesting. I read in one of the trade magazines this week, someone went out on a limb and said TV would be dead in 2 years' time.
2 years. That's a pretty short time frame.
So if you look at the multi-screen report, we're still seeing 90 hours of television viewing, and 90% of that is live. And if you look at video usage on other devices, it's around the 7 hours on PCs and only 2 hours. This is per month. So 90 hours on TV per month, 2 hours on a tablet, 7 hours. It's a long way before 2 years and it's
not even
dead.
close, really.
No, and that appliance that hangs on your wall, people come home and sit down and watch television.
And you've got stats for that. 88% of viewing takes place on TV sets, and we were saying this, but does that 88% include the streaming? I mean, because you can't tell if people are streaming from their tablets and things like that, right?
That'll go into that non-broadcast bit. So with the advent of Netflix and Stan and Presto and those over-the-top services, we'll see that grow. There's no doubt that these services are going to be trialed and thrown to the TV set and used, and also used on other devices. So the TV set, I don't see it dying as TV. I do think that people will still come home and watch live television, especially sport and news, are watched live. If you look at the stuff that's actually time shifted, it's the dramas. It's the U.S. dramas tend to get shifted a bit more.
Or binge watch.
Or binge watching, sitting down and watching 3 or 4 episodes of something. Or when there's 2 competitive programs on or 3 competitive programs on at the same time. So this year we started the year with 3 reality programs, a lot of interest. Watch one live, record the other one, or time shift the other one. So that's what we're seeing happening in these numbers.
You release this report quarterly, and it's fascinating reading every time it comes out. But we're holding above that 90% live. Are you getting a sense they're starting to swing? We will see, maybe more significant drops in future months, future quarters?
I think a little bit at a time. I think as more people get devices in their households that allow them, and more connected TVs come into the household and people have choice, then it affects your live viewing. For every hour that you watch on an over-the-top service, you can't watch an hour of live TV. So you'll see a little bit of change as we go. But it's kind of like, if you look at over-the-top services, a lot of that viewing actually replaced DVDs. So we have households that come home and they go to the DVD store and they play DVDs, and there's hours of viewing on that. That's dropped. And so you swap some of that out, so it doesn't necessarily come right off television. So if you look at the ratings at the start of this year, things like the World Cup cricket, big numbers. So people will still pile back in front of the television set.
Interesting insights there, Doug. We'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Doug Piper there, CEO at OzTam. We do have to take a quick break on Media Week as well. Coming up, though, Top Gear Live to go ahead in Sydney and Melbourne this year. We'll tell you about some of the changes, though, in the wake of BBC dropping Jeremy Clarkson. That's coming up next.